Welcome back to That Amazon Ads Podcast, your go-to resource for everything Amazon ads, from sponsored products, sponsored brands, to sponsored display and DSP. We cover it all with in-depth strategies and tactical insights to help you grow your Amazon sales. Andrew, how are you?
Doing pretty good.
And how is that delivery?
Not bad. A little shaky. You can work on it. You're going to need a little practice, but we all start somewhere. So I'm here for your journey and your growth. So
thanks, man.
You're welcome. Yeah.
I always know I can depend on you whenever you need a friend. It's okay. So can all of our listeners. If they need a friend, Andrew's a great listener.
Great listener. I give really poor advice.
Compassionate.
Yeah. Do as I say, not as I do type of advice.
Yeah. But it's good to be back podcasting after taking around 3 weeks off. I was on some much needed PTO. Fortunately, we backlogged a lot of episodes, so we should not have skipped any weeks of publishing. If we did, and we messed up somewhere along the way in our production. But we're back. We're getting ready to record. And Andrew, any news or updates around the podcast? I don't know if we've gotten any interesting comments or mentions lately.
No, but we have been getting a lot of love from everybody. We've been seeing, subscriber count going up, view counts going up. It's definitely encouraging signs. People are super supportive and sending a lot of notes of encouragement and, just good spirits our way. So we're super grateful and appreciative of that. So thank you guys. We're definitely committed to this and want to keep putting out the content there. So good to get that feedback. And actually, I think one of the pieces of feedback that we got from a few different people was just that like some of the episodes are really long. And so we're talking about trying to chunk down a little bit, put together some shorter episodes that are more bite-sized nuggets, maybe a little bit more quick tips and actionable things that you can take back right away. So we're going to be changing it up a little bit here and there. We'll still have the same, kind of flow and style of content, but we're going to try a few different things here for you guys to give you a different flavor, a different taste of things that we can do here. So
definitely. Yeah. Just to echo what Andrew said, we've gotten subscribers are growing, getting lots of positive feedback. People reaching out on LinkedIn saying the content's been helpful. So I think we're sold. I think we wanted to see a certain level of kind of positive, or at least proof of value that what we were doing was valuable in order to continue this endeavor. So I think we've checked those boxes. So we'll continue to produce content for the long haul. And YouTube's been going great. The Spotify and Apple Podcast channels have been weak. So that's, if you're listening on those channels and you're able to drop us a 5-star review, that would be phenomenal. And leave us some comments there would be great. That would help those channels grow as well. But yeah, like Andrew said, the main feedback we've gotten is that the episodes are a little bit long, and that's probably mostly my fault. running on tangents all the time. I tend to just go with the flow of wherever my brain is leading, which isn't always the best. But we will try to break these down, try to keep these down to around 20 to 30 minutes, smaller chunks. And yeah, anything else to add, Andrew, or do you want to talk about what today's topic is?
No, I just want to say one more thing. We have some great guests lined up. We have been getting reached out to by some really high profile people with some awesome insights and knowledge to share. So we're excited to share that with you guys coming up here soon. So stay tuned for that. Make sure you're liked and subscribed and following, got those notifications turned on so you can see when we post stuff. So look forward to that. But without further ado, Stephen, we're going to dive into this episode where we're going to talk about sponsored product reports, and specifically the first report that we're going to dive into, because we're going to do a series of posts of videos about the sponsored products, sponsored brands, sponsored display reports. We're going to start with the search term report.
Yes, sponsored product reports. There's a lot of reports here, and so we think this would be something we can. Originally, I think the idea was to just, let's talk about sponsored product reports and just blast through all of them. Probably would have been like a 2-hour episode, but we're going to take them one at a time, spread that content out. And part of me, when we were talking about which topic we were going to talk about today, I wanted to almost skip search term reports and jump into some of the more exciting stuff because search term reports to me just seem so basic. But then we kind of backpedaled. We're like, well, we can't really talk about other things like impression share reports and all these types of things until we make sure that our listening audience really has a firm understanding on search term reports and how to use those. So Andrew, before we kind of dive into how we can use these reports to enhance our advertising, why don't you first drop us some definitions, kind of what are these reports? And I'm sure everybody knows this, but maybe just good to clarify, where can they be found and what are some of the reporting capabilities with search term reports?
Yeah, that seems like a good place to start, kind of lay the foundation for everybody from the ground up. So search term reports are a form of report that you can find in the Amazon Ad Console. Most people know this, but you can go to your console, go to reports, create different reports, and you have options there. This search term report specifically, the goal of this is to show you on which search queries your ads are showing up. In comparison to what you're targeting within your campaigns. And so that's the main thing, the one main nugget that you can pull out from search term reports, pretty obvious, search terms. So, and if you don't know the difference between a search term and a target, I think we could kind of delineate that for people just to provide a little bit of clarity. But you have targets and you have search terms. So your targets are what are in your campaign. So it's like your intended target, like the target that you were trying to show up on, your keyword. And the search term is what the customer actually typed in when a customer landed on your detail page or clicked on your ad. And so when you're using things like broad match and phrase match, you can show up on longer tail versions of the target that you are putting an ad on. So for example, if you're running an ad on like a tennis racket and you're targeting tennis rackets as a broad match, you might show up on like athletic tennis rackets for men or something like that. So there's like a long tail version of that. And so this search term report helps you see what search terms you're actually showing up on when you're targeting specific things. And so that's the real benefit that you get here when you're starting to dive into things like keyword harvesting, or you want to go into like negate keywords or find poor performing search terms to clean up your ad spend. You would use something like a search term report to go through and find those targets that are not performing, not driving sales, or find targets that are generating sales that you want to harvest into more manual targeting campaigns. And that's a whole nother conversation for another time. But basically, you're just trying to find exactly where your products are performing best on what exact queries people are typing in when they're finding and purchasing your product.
Yeah, it's basically a look under the hood at all of your keywords and targets. Like you mentioned, Andrew, it's a good way to kind of verify, especially for phrase and broad match. If you do an exact match, the search terms are supposed to be exactly whatever the keywords are. But when it comes to those broad and phrase, it really opens up what potential search queries are triggering your ads to show. So it's kind of just a good way to verify what's actually happening under the hood, and also just verify the actual match type definitions, because Amazon recently has kind of been playing around with what exactly broad match means. So it's a good way to verify that for yourself as well. And then when it comes to the reporting capabilities of search term reports, what do we have at our disposal? Like how many days, and do we have that data daily, weekly? What's all that look like?
Yeah, good questions. So you are limited with search term reports. I think it's one of the most limited reports in terms of date range or data access availability. You can only go back to the last 60 days of data with search term reports. So if it's past that 60-day window, you're not going to be able to pull a report from Amazon and get that data. So as you're going, over time, it's important that you're saving that data in somewhere, whether it be you're exporting it so you have it saved in your console, or saving it to your computer, or you have something like a data warehouse like PackView or something where all that data is being stored. So that's a big thing to note. You don't want to lose that data. This is super valuable data that you're going to want to use going forward. So make sure you're storing that. And then as far as like time units go, you have a couple different options with search term reports. You can do a summary, which is basically just going to roll up all the performance data on each search term for that time period that you're looking at, versus a daily breakout is going to give you each individual day's performance on that search term. And so the difference between that is just the granularity at which you're able to break that data out and you're able to analyze that data. So there's some potential use cases for a daily search term report whenever you're really trying to be in the weeds on a specific target inside of a specific campaign or something like that, where you want to see the performance trended out over a period of time. Maybe you want to see how much you're spending on a specific keyword over time. That would be an instance where you would want to have a daily time segmentation. And that's just going to create a larger report for you, but ultimately more data for you to manipulate. You can, using pivot tables and charts and stuff, you can create some pretty advanced stuff to show you exactly how performance is trending over time. So that's really, really useful. I love that daily report sometimes in specific cases where I really need to know and get nitty gritty on how much I'm spending on specific targets on specific days. So, and just like if I'm trying to be hyper targeted on like a ranking campaign or something, I can measure the performance across that keyword for my brand or for a particular campaign. And I can measure it over time and see how things have changed.
Yeah, it's really the daily time unit segmentation is really for the data junkies. So people who, 99% of people who are using those reports are just going to want to look at their search terms for a certain date range. It's like you want to look at the last 30 days and you want to see all of the search traffic that triggered your ads to show. And that's going to be broken out by basically every single keyword and ad group, all that's going to be broken out in that search report. And for the last 30 days, just all those search terms totaled. For you to get to the point where you actually care about the daily performance of not just your campaigns, but like search terms, like you want to expand the total number of rows in that search term report by probably, I don't know, maybe 30 times longer at least, probably, or maybe not at least, but yeah, around 30 times longer to get each of those search terms now showing not just how much spend did this happen on the search term, but on this specific search term, like running shoes for toddlers, how much did that spend on January 1st versus January 2nd versus January 3rd versus, and it's a lot of data. So what?
I'm sorry, you said running shoes for toddlers, and that was just like cracking me up, man. Like,
yeah.
Like how many toddlers that are out like going for a run?
Dude, I don't know.
Oh my gosh, that really choked me up, man. I'm sorry, I had to interrupt you for a second.
That's okay.
Leave that in. That's good. That's good stuff.
All right, we'll make a note not to cut that. But I don't know what I was gonna say running shoes for something. I don't know. Todd just popped into my head. My niece's birthday is Saturday, so. Anyways, bringing things back home. I mean, for you, Andrew, you're certainly, I think, an exception. Someone who would actually want to break out like daily data on those search terms. For most other people, they will, on occasion. I mean, I think this is a time where like third-party tools are probably helpful because there are third-party tools that can store that search term data, even have daily breakouts for longer than the 60 days that Amazon gives us in these search term reports. But messing with those spreadsheets, because once you break it out into daily, you got to do all kinds of wild stuff. You got to pivot table stuff back together. You got to do subgroups and all this stuff. So, I mean, Andrew, unless if I'm missing something, like how frequently do you think people are actually going to want to use the daily breakout versus just doing the summary?
Yeah, I think if you were like exporting all of this data to be uploaded and stored in a database, you would probably want daily. Like if you were trying to store it yourself, I would break it down as granularly as you can, and then you can roll it up from there. So if that's your intention for data warehousing, data storage, definitely want to go to the daily route. But in general, I would say in most cases, people are just using the summary. The daily is for special occasions where you really need to like pinpoint things and be super precise with your date ranges. And, it provides the most flexibility if you have that daily time segment. It also depends on like the client, right? Like sometimes the client is really interested in those nitty gritty details where you being able to take a search term report and pivot it out and do all those little tricks and tips and stuff like that to make it to be able to show that performance over time on a specific keyword, like that level of detail is sometimes what's required in managing a relationship with a client. Like sometimes that's what they need to see. That's what they want to see. That's what they're reporting internally on, and showing performance across like maybe a 1 or 5 or 10 or 15 keywords, like being able to segment that out and display that in a way that tells the story and shows the data in a comprehensive way. You need to be able to do that. So those are kind of like two different use cases, I guess. I mean, most of the time I'm using summary, just if I'm looking at like performance over time, and I'm not super worried about like the individual days performance. So I'm typically leaning towards summary, but daily in some cases for, specific things that I'm trying to do.
I mean, I could see why maybe after Prime Day, you want to have, download a daily export for the last 2 days, because you want to see like Prime Day 1, Prime Day 2, you want to see those as 2 separate days. So it could be helpful for that. And but for the most part, I think it's usually just going to be summing up all the search terms within that time frame is the most useful. So yeah, I don't know if there's anything else regarding the date ranges. Oh, actually, I did note one thing. We were saying that there was 60 days of data available on the search term reports, but I don't think that's actually correct.
Oh, is it 90? Is it 90?
Yeah, I think it's 64 days.
64?
Yeah, at least.
So weird.
Today is time of recording is September 5th, and it goes back to July 3rd. And then I Googled how many days ago was July 3rd, and it said 64 days. So
that's a random number.
Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe it's 60 days, and then they give you a few extra because of reporting delays or something.
Right. They're like, we know we cut this off at 60.
Yeah. We know the last 4 days aren't accurate, so here's an extra 4 days.
Or we got a lot of people complaining that it was only 60 days, so we changed it to 64.
I know. There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's great stuff.
But yeah, Andrew, why don't we transition now? So that's kind of just a brief introduction to the report, or maybe not so brief. But let's transition over to how people can actually use this report to enhance their performance with their advertising.
Yes, Steven. So we are going to talk about how this search term report can drastically enhance your advertising, how you can use it in your day-to-day management practices to provide better performance, provide good management, to grow your account, scale your campaigns, and find new keywords and new targets to improve your performance. So first things first, the main way that you're probably going to be using search term reports is for keyword research and keyword harvesting. A big part of some of the strategies that we deploy with broad match and phrase match or expanded product targeting are with the intent of finding new keywords that our product converts on and finding new keywords where our product is relevant. So that's why we talked about, the delineation between targets and search terms, because sometimes you're targeting things and showing up on searches that you're not explicitly targeting, but are maybe similar to that keyword that you're targeting. So we use this to find out which long tail keywords we're actually showing up on. What's so funny?
No, I was just thinking of I thought back to when you were laughing at the running shoes for toddlers thing. And I was about to throw that example again. Like maybe you're selling running shoes for adults. Yeah. You see all the search terms are running shoes for toddlers, driving up a ton of spend and not driving any sales for you. So that would be a good discovery of an irrelevant search term that you would want to clean up.
Yeah. You'll find that nobody is searching for running shoes for toddlers because toddlers can barely walk, let alone go for a run. But anyway, good stuff, man. What are we even talking about? We're going to do some keyword research with this search term report for sure.
I think, we don't want to repeat too much, because we believe, at least we're hoping, that our listening audience is a loyal fan base who's already heard every single episode thus far. And so you've already heard us talk about methods for keyword research. as well as methods for negative keywords. And those episodes were, I actually don't have the episodes in front of me, but yeah, go back and catch those episodes if you haven't, because that's the primary use case of these search term reports is going to be for harvesting new keywords and finding wasted spend, which is going to be a negative keyword opportunity. So without recapping all of those, what we do want to talk about are maybe a few lesser known kind of tips and tricks with the search term reports and what you can do there. But one thing that I think is important to note too is if someone just downloads a search term report and they open it up, they're going to see in there, Andrew, that header row, couple of weird things going on there. They're going to see 7-day total sales. What does that mean? Does that mean sales for, it looks like, I know a lot of people say, I downloaded a 30-day search term report. Why is it only showing me the 7-day sales? Why is it only showing me 7 days of sales? So why don't we, first of all, just clarify what that means when it's talking about 7-day total sales and what that means in the header row, or 7-day ACOS or whatever.
Yeah. I think what it means, and it's not, and what it would mean in most cases is that it's referencing a 7-day attribution window. But we know that's not the case. Amazon uses a 14-day sales attribution window. And as far as I can tell, and as far as I know, these search terms map back to that 14-day attribution window that you're going to see in the console. So I think this is just a small header naming glitch or something in the reporting. So this is showing actually the 14 days total sales attribution. It's not just showing, the last 7 days or anything like that. It's not a 7-day attribution window. So that's what it would be saying. And if you ever see that in any different platforms, you might see total sales 7D or 14D or 30D. It's just signifying the attribution window that it's referencing for attributing those sales to different clicks. So if it's a 30-day attribution window, you can get a sale attributed to a click that happened 30 days ago versus a 7-day would only go up to 7 days.
Yeah. And as much as we love these reports that Amazon gives us, we are not totally sure that they're all accurate. There's still a lot of bugs in this platform all over the place. And one thing that we were just noting during recording is we were seeing some search terms in at least one report I was looking at. I think you saw it as well on your end, but we were seeing some items with 0 impressions, 0 clicks, but 3 units of sales and $47 worth of sales. And it's like, how is that possible that this search term had no impressions, no clicks, and yet it still sold 3 units? There's something weird happening here with the attribution. The way it's supposed to work is that the orders and units are only attributed, it says it's a 7-day window, meaning if someone clicks on that ad, there's up to 7 days for the sale to be attributed. But that sale is supposed to be attributed to the day of the click. So it should be, those sales should only be showing up on the day when the click happened. That's what the reps have told us, how the attribution works. So not sure why we're seeing these kind of potentially sales being attributed after the click and after the cutoff date, so the click wasn't accounted. Point being, you're going to see a little bit of wonky stuff in these reports, and it might not always line up to what's going on in the ad console. So just be aware of that. We have 7-day attribution. The ad console is doing 14-day attribution, but this might also be doing 14-day. We don't really know. So you kind of do, don't trust your entire life with these reports. There's certainly a little bit of a work in progress. But something else that's interesting in here, Andrew, that I think some people might note and be curious about is we have the total orders, total units, and then advertised SKU orders and advertised SKU units, and then other SKUs orders, other SKU units. What do those mean? What are we talking about there?
I'm so glad you asked. This is a super important data point that I look at a lot whenever trying to focus on driving velocity to a specific product. But basically, same SKU versus other SKU sales. How you would define that is same SKU sale is when the product that you are advertising is clicked and purchased through that ad. So sometimes what'll happen is a customer will be searching for products. They'll click on a product that's yours or click on your ad and then end up purchasing something else from you that maybe wasn't necessarily that first ad that was clicked. And so let's say maybe you're selling running shoes for toddlers, but they click on your running shoes for toddler ad and they end up purchasing a t-shirt. And so that would be like an other SKU sale. So it's just when another SKU sold on an ad that wasn't for that product. And so a same SKU sale is just the inverse of that, where the product that you are advertising was the product that was purchased. Now, the reason why this is important is because you're able to see this at a search term level, and you're able to find and identify and just kind of see a nice breakout of how impactful certain keywords are, or how effective certain keywords are at driving same SKU sales for whatever product it is that you're advertising. So, for example, I was recently working with this client. They were doing a new product launch. They had a new product that they were coming out with, and they really wanted to focus on driving velocity. And so we set up these different campaigns, and as we were running them, we wanted to get a pulse check on how things were going and things like that. So one thing we were checking was to see how effective certain keywords are that we were focused on, like driving traffic and improving rank on through. We were just comparing how effective those were at driving same SKU sales, which is going to be most important for that product, improving rank. Now, there's not necessarily anything we can do per se to influence whether somebody decides to purchase that product that you're advertising that they clicked on or not. But it is important for us to just at least have insight into it, because you may notice like, hey, I've been trying to target this one search term, this one keyword with this product, and it seems like it's driving a lot of sales through it. It's getting a lot of sales, but then you look in your search term report and you looked at your ranking, it's not going up, and you're wondering why. And you look and you see that it's driving other SKU sales, and so it's not actually driving the sales on the product that you're trying to push and you're trying to improve rank on. And so this would allow you to see something like that, and then you could make some pivots and at least be in the know about what's happening. You're like, hey, like it seemed like it was working, it's driving sales, it's driving orders, but not getting orders to the right product. And so this would give you that type of look.
Yeah. Do you ever look at something I've done in the past? I'm curious if you ever do this, but take the total like same SKU sales and then take the total other SKU sales and look at that ratio of the advertised product versus the cross-sold is probably the best way to say it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the cross sales where someone clicked on that ad but ended up buying a different product other than the advertised product. So do you ever look at that ratio of like how many of those sales are coming from your advertised product versus cross-selling within your brand?
Yeah, I've never actually taken like a full brand pulse on it or anything like that. That'd be interesting. Maybe that's something we could look at. But yeah, I haven't actually done a ton of that. But I do, notice, like, I guess in the analysis of just looking at, the comparison of total or like same SKU versus other, have kind of made inferences about how effective that keyword is at driving same SKU sales. And then, use that as like a insight or pivot point for us. So, yeah.
I've checked on it periodically because I had one account in particular that was really trying to move the inventory. He had like a 12 pack and a 24 pack, and he really wanted to move the 12 pack because he was overstocked. And we were putting a ton of spend behind the 12 pack, and his 24 pack didn't move at all. Sorry, we put a ton of spend behind the 12 pack, but the 12 pack didn't move at all. And he was selling out of the 24 pack. So we paused all the ads on the 24 pack. We were like just going hard on the 12. And when I checked when I checked this report, it was like 80% of the sales were people moving over because the 24 pack was only like 50% more, and it was such a great deal value, whatever you want to call it, that everyone was just cross-selling. And so that's why we ultimately weren't moving it. So that could be like one example of, you're seeing a ton of sales come through, but the needle's not moving on that product. And you can come into here and you can double check, okay, where are these sales coming from? Are they coming from the actual product that I'm promoting, or are they coming from cross-sold sales? And then you might even see within there that there are certain search terms where people are looking specifically for 12 pack or something like that. That's actually having a heavier influence on selling that individual product or the advertised product. And so you can get some more insights there around what's helping you move the needle there. But I mean, typically what I've seen is usually the same SKU or the advertised product itself is usually about 60 to 80% of the total sales. And then there's another 20 to 40% of your total sales that are actually being brand halo attribution.
Yep, that sits about right. I that feels right to me just based on what I've looked at. I don't know like across all accounts and stuff, but yeah, that feels right.
So one other thing that's in here, Andrew, is there is a conversion rate column, which is nice because Amazon doesn't often, or at least not in the campaign manager, they don't give us those conversion rates. But throwing you on the hot seat. How do you think that Amazon is calculating that conversion rate? Is it number of orders over clicks, or is it number of units over clicks?
Ooh, in the report itself, I'm gonna
in the search report. Yeah.
Ooh, tricky question.
And for those wondering, there can be multiple units in one order. So order is like one purchase, but there could be multiple units within an order.
By the way that you framed it, I'm gonna have to go with the sneaky answer and say it's unit session percentage or unit click percentage.
You're wrong. No, it's orders.
Oh, darn.
Yeah. There's something to keep in mind, because when you're in Vendor Central or Seller Central, those conversion rates are based off the units, but within advertising, they use orders for those conversion rates. And the same applies to these reports. So just one other thing to quickly note there. And then I think just to wrap things up, I think another like use case for this is not just verifying the kind of search term to keyword match type kind of correlations and seeing how efficient you are with making sure that your targeting is accurate and identifying wasted ad spend, opportunities to negate, opportunities for new keywords that you're not currently targeting. But one other thing is, especially with categorizing your spend by tactics. So people who are splitting up their tactics between their brand versus their non-brand versus competitor conquesting. Sometimes when people are doing an auto campaign, they don't necessarily refine that auto campaign down. They're running like an auto catch-all, And if you're doing like an auto catch-all somewhere, anywhere, and you haven't negated your brand terms, or even it's just like a research campaign, but you haven't negated your brand terms, your auto campaigns could seem like they're doing extraordinarily well. Like the ROAS is extremely high, sales are pumping. And when you start digging into those search term reports, you realize it's because like 80% of the sales are all coming from like two branded keywords that are just like, making everything look good. Meanwhile, all the other spend is being wasted on a ton of stuff. So that's I think one other thing. But would you agree, Andrew, that that's probably a good use case is, I guess, dissecting auto campaigns and finding a new way to measure the spend by tactic or performance by tactic, I should say?
Yeah, definitely. I think whenever, especially if you're deploying like a relatively robust strategy where you have different tactics, different campaigns that are allocated to different tactics, that you're, maybe you have like a brand campaign for these products and a non-brand and a competitor campaign. And you want to ensure that the targeting within those campaigns is showing up where you intended it to. Like, for example, if maybe you had a non-brand campaign targeting, whatever, toddler shoes, and it started showing up on your brand and toddler shoes, but you didn't want that to be showing up on your branded terms in your non-brand campaign, you would use a search term report to identify that and see that that's actually happening, and be able to go in and negate it. So that way you have good isolation across your campaigns and your tactics. So that's a good way to use it. But yeah, and then for auto campaigns, same idea. You can find make sure that those auto campaigns are going after the search terms and queries that you're looking for and you want it to. So yeah, it can definitely be used for that. You can also take your search term report and make if you had like your search term report and your customer search term column, if you just made a second column to the right of that and you call it tactic, and then you had like search for your brand name, you made a filter and you search for your brand name, label all those in those rows as brand, and then all the rest of them are non-brand or competitor, and then just quickly pivot that out. You're able to see all of your performance metrics broken out by tactic, brand, non-brand, competitor. We have different tools that we use and macros to quickly take a search term report and zip out, break out by tactic. Given different parameters that we give it, we tell it like what types of branded terms, what branded terms look like, what brand ASINs are, and stuff like that. So that's a super helpful use case for the search term report as well.
Yeah, and I think the only thing I would add to that, speaking to that search term isolation, is it can also be helpful. Let's say you just created a single keyword campaign because you're like, this is, there's this one keyword that's super important. We really want to make sure that we're spending on it, getting good visibility. And maybe that keyword is gym clothes for toddlers and it's exact match. And you're cranking that bid and you're getting up to $2, $3, $4, $5. and there's like no spend happening on it, like no impressions, no nothing. And you're like, dang, what the heck? Like $10, $20, and there's no spend coming on. Just download a search term report. Maybe all the spend is being funneled to another campaign, or maybe there's an auto campaign somewhere that's just like, that has a long history of doing well on that search term specifically. And you've already got a pretty high bid there, and that's where it is. So it can also kind of help you map back where that traffic is going for those super special VIP keywords. Like you've got this one keyword that's great for all of your products, and you want to verify, okay, what's the level of representation that each product is getting on that keyword. It can be helpful for that as well. Hopefully, you would need single product ad groups for that to work. Hopefully you followed our episode on campaign structure and you're doing something like that or similar. But yeah, you could aggregate it by ASIN to see how much how many impressions each of your products is getting on that one keyword. You can break it out there and kind of follow the trail back to see like where exactly all these impressions are coming from. So it can help you kind of do some deeper analysis there. And I think that pretty much covers it. This report is certainly the most basic. I don't think, hopefully there's some helpful like tips and ideas in there, but I don't think these search term reports will be super new concepts to anybody who's in PPC. It should be all pretty basic, but hopefully there's some additional stuff in there. I think once we get into more of the complex stuff like the impression share reports, some of the placement reports, there will certainly be quite a bit more to break apart.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of stuff in these reports. I'm excited to dig into each one of these individually and talk about it at this depth and kind of force ourselves to find new ways to use them and come up with new ideas for how these can be applicable. So I'm excited about it. I'm looking forward to the rest of these episodes on reporting. And
which report are you most looking forward to talking about?
Probably, I don't really know, man. I like them all.
Gross and invalid traffic?
Yeah, that's the one I'm pulling daily. I want to know.
I don't even know what that one does.
Yeah, it's not super useful, but yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you guys for listening. Once again, like and subscribe. If you're a podcast listener, especially, we need your guys' help to help our ranking and SEO value on the podcast platform. So drop us a review on Spotify and Apple if you're enjoying this, and we'll catch you guys next time. Peace out.
Later.